we're live.
Exactly, and then you got to pull the chicken out, and then
No kidding. How does this chicken get stuck up there? Oh, wait a minute. It's a live animal show today.
Good evening, folks. Good evening, those watching, those listening in the future. We're not going to have an elevator pitch this evening, folks. I think everyone watching is going to know.
Yeah, if you don't know him, that's your problem.
Yeah, there are plenty of podcasts where Mr. Birkey has given his life story,
hosted or been a guest.
Do go back to look at what was it called?
Yeah, we still haven't forgiven you for faking it.
Faking it.
For stopping faking it, that is, not for doing faking it.
I'll tell you what, it's a hard go, man. I'll tell you what, I respect you guys that can do this on a weekly basis, because it's a grind, and I know it well.
The trick is we just cheated, and we're only 8 weeks in, and we've cheated and just got guests in who people we want to speak to for an hour.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, you're here tonight, so things might change. But...
I'm the exception.
Well, this is it. This is our total aim, is to just have essentially it's just a scheduled conversation where we can say to our other halves, well, actually it's podcast time now, and we can actually have a waffle, and we can waffle to guests, people that we want to talk to, and not worry about it. We've got a good excuse because it's a podcast.
I like it.
For us, it's just a conversation, and that's the way we want it to be. And
let's go, bring it.
It will continue.
Come on.
Yeah. So it's just relaxing. So we don't worry about those pre-show nerves that you had. We won't share those with anyone.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just between us.
Sure, I've heard that before. That's what judges don't like that.
Yeah, honestly, we weren't recording. Yeah, there's no evidence at all. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that obviously, Andy, you're our first guest from the
old colonies,
the other side of the pond and stuff. But I suppose technically you're just an honorary European at this point, anyway, aren't you?
That is probably true.
A European with a funny accent, maybe.
That's actually a pretty accurate way of putting it, because most of the stuff I say around here is based on the year I spent on the continent and in England when I was 18. So I've got a lot of little weird things that would sound normal to you guys, but sometimes I get weird looks around here.
I mean, obviously for those who have been and binge listened to Faking It and sort of know your backstory and your time sort of exploring the world and stuff. Obviously, they sort of seem to be like formative years of yours, almost, of kind of defining your core philosophies and who and how you are as a person and stuff. So we can only apologize to the Americans for that.
Yeah, they take the brunt of it. No, it's really true though. That was an amazing, such an amazing experience. I was thinking about this the other day. For an 18-year-old to be out in the world alone and without a cell phone, no visible means of support. The only thing I had was my sister had called me and said, "Look, if you get into trouble, I'll send bail or a ticket to get home, whatever you need. But then you owe me. Then you got to pay it back." So that's the only lifeline I had, and there was a couple of times when my finger was on the trigger of that one.
Yeah, I can well imagine.
Talking of fingers on trigger, JP in the chat just asked, has anyone ever had any trouble picking Andy up from an airport? If I remember correctly, there may be a trigger involved in that.
Yeah, there was a small little gun involved, and Jamie got scared. So there was a very... how would you say that there's a very serious police officer involved? Yeah.
Yeah, generally the officers in the UK that are firearm trained generally have a sense of humour failure on their sort of working day.
That is absolutely
I'm
true.
pretty certain that they're just removed at the start of their shift. It's just like a key lock. They just uninstall the sense of humor just to be on the safe side.
Yep. I would not be a good cop, I'm telling you. You got to know your limits, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So that wasn't a career option for you then?
No. Matter of fact, I have no idea what my career options were. I just sort of fell into this and kept going. I was you guys would appreciate this. I was the guy in the early part of the 1980s near Seattle, Washington, who had an argument with my buddy. We were talking about our career choices. And I said, I'm going to go into construction and be a carpenter because that's, it's good money, right? He said, yeah, I think I'm going to go into personal computers. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's stupid career.
Computers. Jeez whiz.
In Seattle, yeah.
In Seattle. Yeah. That's me. That's thinking right there.
I'm guessing he's doing well of himself nowadays.
He's all right. Yes, he's all right.
There is a downside to that, though, and that is that you end up looking like this.
Absolutely. Better to be lucky than good, though, Jamie.
Yeah, it's true.
So do you think that decision to go into sort of carpentry was inspired? I mean, was there somebody? I mean, was it just because you knew people that were making good money from it, or was it something that you always been handy? Was shop class one of your favorites in school? Why carpentry?
No,
why not something else?
Absolutely hated the shop class because of the shop teacher. Was not a fan, and I think the feeling was more than mutual. And but to be honest, it goes a bit deeper than that, Andy. It's I was a little guy growing up, always undersized in my peers, and I saw carpenters as the tough guys of the world. So where I grew up, it was either carpenters or loggers, and
of course, yeah.
I knew I was smart enough to know that the average life in the woods as a logger is about 2 to 3 years. That's the average career. Those guys get busted up a lot.
Good time. Yeah.
And so that that left me one option. And hey, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I love being outside at the time because you're on a crew that we were doing everything from digging in the manure at dairy farms to building cabinets. So it was that kind of crew, and they took me in and made me grow up and also taught me a lot. So
I'm pretty certain you haven't grown up yet.
It tried to make me grow up. They didn't let me whine.
It's interesting you saying about the carpenters being the kind of the tough guys in the the construction industry. I spent time in facilities management, which was you had carpenters and you had electricians and plumbers and kind of all the trades to do facilities management. And very early on in my career there, the site foreman took me to one side and said, look, you can have a joke with just about any of the lads in the trades, but just don't annoy the scaffolders. The scaffolders are the ones that you want to stay on the good side of. They are like anyone who can hang upside down 30 foot in the air swinging a 10-foot scaffold pole with one arm is not someone you want to annoy.
That's right.
That was like something that stuck with me for the last sort of 15 years.
Some guys you just don't mess with, period.
Especially if they're setting up the scaffold that you're going to be working off.
True.
Absolutely, yeah.
True.
Yeah, when I was trained to be a teacher, it was like, one of the sort of first and most important piece of advice that one of the tutors gave was, your science teachers, make sure that you're on side with the science technicians and the caretakers. Yeah, whatever you do in a school, doesn't matter who else you work with or how, but get those on side, because if you don't have them on side, you're not going to succeed in that school. And it's so true. Yeah,
it's the who you know, not what you know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Truth. And recognizing the people that take care of you and taking care of them.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
God, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is a chat I've wanted to have for ages, having you on,
Oh God.
because I think this is.
Quick, strap into the chair.
Go ahead, Andy. Drill it.
Yeah,
Drill it, Andy. I'm ready.
I mean, we chatted a little bit of Maker Central back in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
That was the last one, wasn't it? Just feels so long ago. But yeah, it's a busy time, and there's lots of other sort of distractions and noise and things like that. And yeah, we've had numerous chats, haven't we, through sort of direct messaging,
Right.
on Instagram or Facebook, because we share some sort of passions for being curious. I think it's probably the best way of putting it.
Absolutely.
So that's something I want to talk about, because I see you as one of the most curious and creative people in our corner of the maker community. And I see people recognizing that you are, the expression that's often used is weird, but I think that when people say weird and Andy Birkey, I think what they're really saying is you make me think in a different way to 99% of the other stuff that is posted on Instagram and Facebook. You look at the world. You look at the world in a different way to, again, 99% of what we're seeing on Facebook. Yes, you've got, I mean, from the work the fantastic work you do, and if anyone that's listening to this isn't familiar with your work, I would urge them to go and look on your Instagram, go past all the kind of the pictures that you take on your morning walks, go past all the kind of other things, and look at some of the fantastic pieces of work that you do for your profession, and just take in how difficult that is.
Yeah, the tip for anyone who's doing this is to search through Andy's feed and look for the sort of thing that looks like a team of people spent 10 years doing. Yeah. And that's like Andy's weekend kind of bit of work for his job. If you think, oh wow, that looks like it's been several years worth of work, then that's the thing that you want to look at, because that's Andy's kind of.
Thanks, guys. That's
afternoon of playing.
If I could, script, my whatever it's called at your funeral, that right there Eulogy. Would be, yeah. If somebody would say that I made them think and I made them see the world in a little more curious light, that would be, I would consider myself a success.
I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that you've got this sort of the curiosity of a child, but the wisdom of a sage. That sort of, the philosophical side to what you're seeing, but the curiosity to see it through, fresh eyes, sort of thing. Almost.
To me, the thing that I fear the most is the rigidity of age. I have seen this happen to so many of my associates and peers, that there becomes a rigidity both in craft and in the defense of your own opinions and the way that you see the world. To me, I fear that more than anything. So it is, I think there's a natural tendency, but it's also been, I jealously attack that on a daily basis, because I just want to have that suppleness, and that, if you really look at leaves in the spring and then 3 or 4 months later, they're different. They're the same exact leaf, but they're completely different in their texture and how they feel and their color, and all the things. But I just want to have that sort of easy suppleness of thought.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've got a question from the chat from Steve from Moonshine Metalworks. He's asking, what advice would you give to folk in order to help them see beauty in the world around them that sometimes gets overlooked, because you don't overlook things. You aren't just looking at, let's say, the wider landscape. Although, I mean, some of your landscape photography is top notch, absolutely top notch. I mean, the photograph that you took and used for the Maker auction for I've forgotten who it was, a couple of years ago. I mean, that was just stunning, absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
And so simple. So, but you will look at the minutiae, the things that, you know, Steve says, the stuff that most people just overlook. I mean, what would you say to someone? What do you say? I mean, Steve's a budding videographer and
and he's a damn good photographer as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm teasing there. He does some fantastic work.
I mean, for me,
videography is beautiful.
For me, it all, and I guess it's advice, but I mainly am giving advice to myself. It is easy to prioritize what's going on in our heads on a daily basis. But to me, if you make that priority of seeing one thing that everybody else is missing in a given situation, just prioritize that. And to me, you know, it's way easier to do that when I'm alone with a dog. Or I'm just alone. That's why I don't, as much as I love hanging with, like, you know, Maker Central guys at Maker Central, I need time alone and with a very quiet mind, because I've said it before, when it's so quiet that dewdrops get loud, that's where you want to be. They're you know, they're like screaming at me, take my picture, you know, look at how the lights, you know, again, light, texture, color, those things, if you can drop into that, I mean, I know we're talking a little weird here, but if you can drop into that headspace, to me, a lot of stuff that's just white noise, just, you don't even realize it, but it goes away for, you know, a half an hour or even a few minutes. I was in a conversation last week. I don't know if you guys saw it on my Instagram. There was this very simple picture of diagonal lines coming into horizontal lines, but not quite lining up. Yeah. And I was literally talking to a guy, and I saw the sun coming through these Venetian shades, casting a shadow onto a speaker grill. And he was talking, and I said, I apologize, but I have to stop you just for a second here. I have to take this picture because I already know what I want to do with it. Mm-hmm. But I saw what future me was going to do with it right then. So I had to stop him, and he was a cool guy. And so he stopped talking and allowed me to take a couple of pictures and then get back in my chair, and we continued on the conversation. But to me, I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm going to take those times and those opportunities. You know, if I have jobs out in the country or whatever, I always leave a half an hour before I need to, just to allow me the time to. But it's a grind, like anything else. You know, it starts with seeing, and you have to make the time to see stuff correctly.
Well, I was just going to say is do you sort of actively look for the gaps between the toes, as it were? Just, you know, you're looking for those bits that people aren't looking for.
No, I don't see it that way, because that makes it, to me, that sounds a bit competitive. And to me, it's funny because a lot of times, especially in the mornings, you know, I'm up right at daybreak or maybe before, or I'm out, you know, in it. And, you know, and I see the conditions atmospherically, what's happening. Okay, you know, today's going to be a good light day, or today's, you know, a heavy overcast. So we have to look for contrast. And if I'm in the right zone, I end up almost every time not taking pictures of those things that I thought were going to happen. to be open to whatever presents itself, and
I was
sometimes
about
it
to
doesn't.
say, I suppose it's a case of being aware but open, rather than, like you say, being aware and trying to force something.
Definitely.
Letting something happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think it's a skill that you've developed?
I think
Or
so.
is it something that
Yeah.
you've always had, you've naturally done?
No, where I really picked it up was one of the first Gothic churches that I worked on. I had a very good, we didn't get along, but in retrospect, 20 years later, I realized that he was an excellent designer. And he told me, because here in the 70s, a lot of the Catholic churches tried to modernize their Gothic spaces, right? So they took out ornament. And what this guy told me was, he said, take the cues for how to treat this room from the room. So what is already here that not only can we replicate, but we can take inspiration from. So that really made you, I mean, if you really want to make this weird, Jamie and Jake took me into Canterbury Cathedral. And I think they thought I was going to do something weird or something, because to me, now I'm studying that room, probably like not, another 1 or 2% of the people that walk through the door are studying the room. They're looking at good architecture and fun ornamentation. But I want to know the interconnection. I want to know, where is the compass point that drew that arc? All that kind of stuff. Because to me, this is kind of fun because it leads, if you really are breaking it down, it leads right back into math and geometry. And
it's the why and the how, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, to me, it's just an endlessly fascinating a walk. It can be, I've often said it, I don't go to church, but I go to church every day, because that in a way is a meditative state, that you're really trying to open yourself up and suck in more information than, I guess we kind of talked about that. Are you trying to suck in more than other people? I guess in a way I am.
I mean, there's a whole
competitively.
sort of phrase that you've kind of coined with that, though, isn't there?
Yes.
And I'm pointing at my shirt of Andy's logo here, but it's, the see more, make better. It's that kind of, the more you take in, the more inspiration you've got to draw from, I suppose.
Yeah, it's building a mental library, isn't it? Of shapes and textures and colors and shadows and light and blah, blah, blah.
I suppose like Andy and I, other Andy, but we've talked before about, sort of transfer of skills or knowledge, and how we pick up skills quickly. And I suppose it's probably a very similar kind of thing, isn't it? If you, I suppose for the day job at very least, you can wander and say, oh, well, I've seen this thing in this church here that is very similar. I wonder if it's, maybe the people who made the one in this church might have worked with the people who've worked in this other church. And I suppose it's that kind of, if you're understanding the background or the design inspiration from it, or like you said, the maths and geometry of it, of, being able to draw from inspiration at other similar places. Right.
I think you're absolutely right. To me, it's a literacy. It's a visual literacy. It's
a good way
an understanding. I don't know. 15 years ago, I remember being at a family outing, which is never a good thing for me. But my niece was reading. She was learning. She was 5-ish, and she was learning how to play the piano. And she was reading a piece of music. And I was sitting there watching her, and I realized all of a sudden that this is what illiteracy feels, what it is.
Yeah.
Those things on that paper mean absolutely nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I've got to back up the truck, especially if I'm around someone, from the Gen Pop that doesn't understand what I'm doing. they're all of a sudden Berkey is like stopped in the middle of a sidewalk staring, gawking with his mouth open.
He's being Andy Birkey again.
Is he having a stroke again? Or, but it's, they don't understand. I'm trying to see things that are at a literacy level. I guess it's maker literacy. It's a fluency of observation. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's more things in the lexicon, isn't it? It's just more tools in the workshop. It's more of everything that you can then draw from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking the things I'm hearing here and listening to you talk is like most things in life. I've over the last couple of years, I've become increasingly aware that many people in the world, and in the maker community sometimes as well as the general population, like just everything to be black and white, very clear, very steps. You can get great traction on a blog or on YouTube with 3 steps to, or 5 steps, or 10 things you should do type kind of posting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not realistic. It's just not life. Life is really complicated. Yeah, every situation is really complicated, and I think the media probably have a lot to sort of blame for people not appreciating that.
Right.
As something we've seen over the last year with that, which we won't go to today. But what I'm hearing from you is that your curiosity is fed, probably amongst other things. I'm sure there'll be some other things we'll get to shortly, but is fed through a meditative process that you have developed and has turned into a skill of observation that is just different, and that it's something you have practiced and have become better at it. And kind of the thought that came to sort of my mind, sort of hearing you talk about, the fact that you're looking for that which isn't being noticed, you're listening to the sound of the dewdrops, is a training of the mind to open up. And it reminded me of, I've been fortunate in the past to know a few guys who have been operating at tier 1 levels of special forces, and they think differently.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains work differently to other soldiers, to other people in the forces, and to other people. And there is an element, perhaps, you could look into the psychology of people who are going to be successful in that realm and look to see what some of the common traits are. But most of it is acquired. It's a skill. So things like tactical awareness. A tier 1 operator will walk into a bar and will instantly start analysing where are the possible threats, where are the possible weapons, where are the possible escapes, where are the people that are watching me in a way that isn't normal, what are those sort of warning signs. And that obviously is their realm, and that's a skill that they need if they're going to operate and survive at those sort of levels, doing the kind of things that they do, the sneaky beaky stuff. But it's a skill you don't generally, unless you've perhaps been brought up as a bar brawler from an early age, you're not going to have that skill of walking into a bar thinking, right, where are the weapons, where are the threats, where are the exits, where am I going to sit so I can see people coming in, where people like to be hiding, is there a baseball bat or a shotgun underneath the bar? Unless you've been brought up in that kind of bar brawling environment, you're not going to have those skills. But over time, with the right education, whether that's being put into certain environments, whether that's obviously training and other people, you develop those skills slowly. And then, obviously with experience, you the more time you're going out, you perhaps start with other folk. Like you mentioned, there was the guy who said, use the room to tell you what's going on.
Right.
So you're getting kind of that input from somebody else, and you're developing this skill by a series of practice. A practice that you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, with intent. I think the intent is also important.
That's the key, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, and I guess it goes back to Steve's question.
Well, we've mentioned before. Yeah. We've talked before about kind of, and many people talk about kind of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice. And what's often missed out there is that, yeah, it's a lovely sound bite from a book, but it misses out the fact you can do 10,000 hours of practice, but if you've not done it with intent, you're still going to be rubbish.
Yeah, for active improvement, isn't it? There's no point practicing the same thing.
But with maybe the proper intentional practice, you may reach mastery well before 10,000 hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
I think there's another question from the chat which maybe links to that, and from Neil saying, who inspires you? Are there people in the world who, I mean, you mentioned people that have maybe, have there been, I'd like to extend that question and to maybe a couple of parts. Are there people in your past who have helped forge your way of thinking now? Are there people that continue to inspire you? And are there people that make you excited to create? So let's go back. Who's been in your past? Who's helped formulate you? It wasn't your shop class teacher, obviously.
No. Well, it's very weird because I think we have the capacity to collect information and learn lessons positively and negatively. And the best teachers are the hardest. I had a martial arts teacher that once told me that if you really want to understand the spiritual side of this, the mental game, your sister teacher. And when, in a typical like Chinese philosophy manner, you're sitting there going, what are you talking about? And the concept was because no one knows how to get under your skin faster than that relative that we all have, that probably most of us have. So to me, it really is less about specific, more about, well, I learned this as a kid. Growing up in a preacher's household, you knew you have a fine line of this is going to get my butt. And there's the balance between those two. And I watched my brother not tread that line very well and just absolutely just get hammered. And so as a fighter, here comes Andy, who's studying, going, no, I know exactly how far I can go without getting my butt kicked. And
pushing
so
limits,
that starts the mental ball, and then I think you downhill, you try to just pick it up more and more as you go. But I benefited greatly from studying the mental side of martial arts to the point where I dropped out of the physical part of it, and on the really has a lot of influence on this whole conversation. It's not me being unique in any way, shape, or form. It's basic, Buddhist type of involvement in the minute that you are in now. That's
I suppose that kind of links back to the that kind of transfer of skills, isn't it? Because that is kind of very much your way of doing your work as well as your enjoyment and your hobbies. It seems to be a definite philosophy of Andy the person, in all your interactions.
I try to, to just be pretty darn honest with myself, and which is most of the time is, but to be super honest with people, and to be positive and encouraging, and not to hide. I don't have any tricks. If somebody how I did something specifically, how I did it. It may not be the right way, but it's the way that, because a lot of my kookier skill sets, are all self-taught for the most part. So, I'm not saying it's classically right, but it works.
Well, again, I suppose that's down to presentation, isn't it? You can say, here is how I did this thing, rather than here's how to do this thing. And I think it's knowledge of oneself, and knowing your skill sets, and like you say, being honest with who and what you are to be able to present that. You've sort of removed that ego by presenting it as a piece of self. You haven't said, here's how you should do this. It's, here's how I did this. You kind of presenting then that, kind of, here's a lesson you might wish to learn, rather than do it my way, sort of thing.
As Andy was saying, I also do not believe in recipes. I don't believe I can tell anyone the 4 easy steps to making X, Y, or Z. It's situational. And one of the things that I've really benefited from is having to be a problem solver on site in the Caribbean, because it was always weird and always messed up and never plumb, level, or square. And just almost impossible almost impossible expectations, and making complete imperfection somehow rise to a level of managed expectation. So,
of course, yeah.
But again, I don't cook with recipes. I don't make with recipes, sometimes to my detriment. But but I like that I like that exploration part of it. I don't want to.
But did you cook with recipes once?
Definitely. You need to define the skills first before you.
It's getting the principles.
Head off.
Learn the principles.
Absolutely.
And then other things.
That's an excellent point.
Fall into place.
Know the rules before you can break them.
Say that again, Jamie. I broke up a little bit.
Knowing the rules before you can break them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A couple of people in the chat have asked, just sort of picking on that sort of tab. We've had a couple of questions in the chat relating to things like have you your thoughts on things like sacred geometry, and that was from Peter from Craft Tech. There's another one from Kelly, the Gentleman Maker, asking if you had read Pillars of Earth. The sacred geometry is something I've am aware of, not something I would say I've read. And Pillars of Earth is not something that I've read. But yeah, I know that I've seen you with kind of books of geometry books, essentially.
Right.
And
they kicked me out of high school geometry, so I've got they literally, it was a mutual agreement, put it that way. But yeah, I mean, not being schooled even in geometry, I feel like I have to. It puts me in the cheater mode, the hacker mode, right? Recently, I had to make a cosagon. I don't know, a 20-sided polygon. Mm-hmm. I had no, how you lay that out. Well, thanks to the beauty of the internet, with a compass, I can lay out a 20-sided polygon. Mm-hmm. And I think there absolutely is a sacred geometry. You'd be pretty arrogant to think that guys 600 years ago could drop a cathedral ceiling standing.
They might have possibly planned it.
They might have had themselves together, yeah. But it's fascinating stuff. I feel like if I had another lifetime, I could definitely. But again, we're products of our history, right? And I was told at a very early age, I think as trying to protect me, that Birkeys aren't good at math. And I loved my mom to death, but I wish she'd never told me that, because I fully believed it, and I mean, why would I believe anything else? But
I had the same for we're not musical, we're not sporty, although we were makers, and this is something I've talked about in the past. Kind of my maker history, going back to being a kid. Yeah, although both my parents did art things, we weren't artists. We definitely weren't music. There was no music in our house other than kind of a record player, and sport was. Yeah, that was just a joke to the idea of being sporty. I'm going to avoid actually have a bit of a rant about stuff like that, because I see it so often.
Here we go.
As a physics teacher, I had so many times when people said, "Oh, no, we're not good at physics,"
right.
And it drives me nuts. But that would distract from our conversation.
Well, I mean, sorry, just to sort of, grab a point from both of you there. You're saying about using a compass. You don't necessarily need to know that there's 360 degrees in a circle, or that there's 180 degrees in the three corners of a triangle, but you can use a compass on a circle and lay a triangle out. Like you say, that if you can acquire the knowledge in another way, you can acquire how to do something without necessarily needing to know the physics of it, or know the maths of it, or know the geometry of it. If you can figure out the tools well enough to accomplish the goal, you can not so much reverse engineering, but you can still accomplish the task to the same degree as someone who knows the science of the maths of the geometry behind it.
I think it's seeing application.
Not a prerequisite. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as a teacher, one of the things that I try to do, and it's not always possible, when you're governed by kind of exam specifications, but something I always try to do is go, look, this bit of physics or this bit of science, is really useful to know. We used to do wiring a plug. I think everyone should know how to wire a plug. And or even know that they're not maybe got the mechanical dexterity to wire a plug well, so they know that they need to get somebody else to check it, or they need to know that they need to get perhaps somebody else to do it, because it is a fiddly thing to do, and you don't have enough time to make sure that absolutely everyone in the class can absolutely wire a plug. The exam just requires them to know what a well-wired plug looks like and what could go wrong. And that is a useful skill that everyone should have, even if they can't necessarily themselves wire the plug. Mm-hmm. But there are other parts of physics which are, you're going to go, this bit, unless you're going to study physics at the next level, or the level after that, you're never going to need to know this again. But then there's this bit where it's not kind of directly practical, like wiring a plug, but having an understanding of it might make you a safer driver, or have a better understanding of why you should be slowing down towards traffic lights rather than keep going and try and brake at the last minute. Kind of having an understanding of conservation of momentum and kinetic energy and things like that. And I think, that's a difficulty with schooling, to try and get everything applicable. But when you can go, do you know what, we're going to use these compass and things, and we're going to build something and actually make something that, we've got this 20-sided polygon, and we can actually make that out of card. And, okay, not something that most people need in their everyday life or their professional life, but actually it's a bit of fun. It shows that actually this mathematical theorem or group of theorems can be useful in some way. You're building something, you're actually producing something. It's not just some theoretical construct where mathematicians go, "Oh, isn't this exciting?" Mathematician can be a bit like that. I can say that.
Yeah,
from
a little bit.
physicists.
But you know who does that super well is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
The excitement. I mean, I cannot listen to that guy with. I'm like amped to go to. I think that curiosity. I mean, there's a guy that you can tell is a curious soul. I mean,
yes.
He lives.
I mean, there's
and
another one
breathes.
over your shoulder, just out to the outside of the flag in your background, the other way.
Wait.
Mr. Einstein there.
Oh, I got him.
He's just showing the
Passion
guns
and
off there. Isn't
creativity. Yeah.
Where is it?
I would recommend
there
talking
it is.
about Neil deGrasse Tyson. If anyone hasn't heard him talk, I would recommend the Jordan Harbinger podcast. He's been a guest on there a couple of times. So if you kind of go back and look at that, links to anything we talk about will end up in the show notes, which will be the description, which normally has been happening about Wednesday after the podcast. I'm hoping it might be a bit quicker this week because school holidays have started-ish, at least half the household. So, yeah, Jordan Harbinger podcast, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I listened to both two of them. I don't know if there are more this last week, actually. Actually went back and he was a recent guest, and I went back and listened to the first time. And I mean, as an educator, a science educator, I'd love to actually have a sort of deeper conversation. I don't think Makers Waffle is the right forum for that. I'm not sure. We've approached a couple of big names recently, and so far not got anywhere. The guy, he's curious. I'd love to sit down with a drink and have I suspect a very good evening of conversation with him.
Absolutely. You know that old thing of, who's two people that you'd like to have dinner with. If I could sit Neil deGrasse Tyson and the Dalai Lama down together, I'm not sure that my cranium could hold my brain. Because
I think with Neil it could, because Neil is fantastic at being able to talk about the things that he is interested in at a level that anyone can understand.
Absolutely.
And I think that is the one of the many keys to a great educator. That ability to kind of put things into a manner which anyone, even without the training, without the previous experience in that subject, to understand in some way. Now, it might not be the same way that we're talking about black holes that somebody with a PhD in astrophysics would understand compared to a 5-year-old. But he can talk to a 5-year-old and get them to understand things about black holes. He can talk to a 25-year-old 10-year plus school leaver, left school 10 years previously, who's been working in construction, who is not someone who sits down with New Scientist, Scientific American, or any pop science books, sort of trying to take it in and help them to understand the things. He can talk to somebody who's got a degree in a literary subject or an art subject, and he can talk to them. And he's a very.
There's
very
another one who's very, very similar, actually. It's someone I'll dig the link out, but it has a bit of an Andy Birkey quality to him as well. Is a guy called Clifford Stoll, who's
what was that one again?
Clifford Stoll.
Gotcha.
He's another physicist, but he's another one of these people with a million different paths that his life's taken. And at the moment, he makes glass Klein bottles, which are a single-sided. It's like a Mobius strip turned into this thing. It's a single-sided object. It's very, very, very cool. But he did a TED talk years ago that was 18 minutes with an agile mind, and he discussed going into doing some teaching, sort of front lines with kids, with young kids, teaching 8th grade, I think, and doing an experiment with these 8th graders on measuring the speed of sound, just in the classroom with a ruler and a microphone and a signal generator and an oscilloscope to see the waveform, but doing this kind of practical experiment that's down at a level that they can understand, and that kind of level of communication, of being able to inspire that creativity in someone, or being able to inspire in someone that might see a particular topic as beyond their skill level, if they've been told they can't do science, or they're too dumb to learn this or something, to then be shown how to do it practically, rather than here's a list of equations that you must write down in your book. I think that kind of ability to communicate and develop that ability to see the world in a different way than they've been taught to, or told that they're able to. I think it's, again, that sort of loops back to what you tend to do of listening to the dewdrops and kind of showing that this level of beauty or this level of creativity is there that people don't necessarily look for, because they're not trained to look for it.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is there's just so much to unpack here, isn't there? And so much to talk about. I knew this was going to happen. I knew we were going to go.
Didn't know it was going to get weird.
Tangents and all, putting more geometry in. Go off on all sorts of tangents, and it's not disappointed at all.
Well, we were getting Birkey on, and people were expecting weird Birkey, and we give them super weird Birkey.
Yeah.
Tease the hidden weird Birkey out. Yeah.
This is it right here. It's very weird.
We know you're more than just silly glasses and fart jokes.
Nah, that's pretty much it. Did we answer the questions sufficiently, that those last two, Andy, that came in from the chat?
I think we can still go back on that. There've been a few other questions in the chat since as well, but so let's just pick on that. So we talked about there's some people that have inspired,
right?
Were there in the past? So still in the past, are there people that in the past have kind of, if you think back, are there people that put you onto this track? You mentioned sort of your sister and things like that, but are there? Do you think there were people that were directly in your life, or perhaps people that you took notice of? And you've mentioned sort of Dalai Lama. This is something I know you kind of have this Buddhist approach to thinking. Are there people like that have, things that you've read that have inspired your thinking, that you've got used to today?
Well, so much of I'm very grateful that I grew up angry. I grew up angry that I had to go to church 6-7 times a week, that I had to be the preacher's kid, that I wanted to be a kid. And this is an odd way of looking at it, but as an inspiration, I didn't want to put that on anybody ever. I wanted to be the person that people felt like they could be themselves around, that they didn't have to put on any kind of an act, which I had to do as a kid until I was 17. And so going from that and blowing the house and heading to Europe, the whole thing was fighting against my upbringing. Until so kind of that led into the whole punk rock thing and all that, where we were fighting, we were angry, I was angry, and then for me, really, when I was introduced to some martial arts, I began to understand that I didn't have to carry that anymore, and I could I could kind of vibe on being positive but I needed that to know that darker stuff to recognize it when it came.
It's
the old thing when
change, isn't it?
Yeah, the teacher appears when the student is ready is the saying, and I for many years wasn't ready, and I will have to say too that the maker community, I can't even really. I don't want to say anybody specifically because collectively it's far greater influence on me. In 2015, when I was brought into the maker community, I was adamantly against sharing anything that I made online because, people were just jerks about it. And I was convinced to enter one of the original groups. And just to number one, be me, and to have people appreciate that I would stuff. That was huge to me. And I've said it before, but I seriously mean it, that I take that very, very seriously, that you guys gave me the love of making back. I was quickly sliding into middle age, curmudgeon, where's retirement, when's retirement type of mentality. And you guys gave me life again, and I'll never forget it. I appreciate it.
I think it's definitely mutual from the, speaking for the entirety of the maker community who loves you. I think the feeling is very much mutual that you gave us you.
Well, win-win.
Yeah, I mean, going back on the circle to kind of something I said earlier. Yeah, that for me, I mean, we've had conversations about what we see and how we see, and yes, I sometimes I haven't posted much lately in terms of photography, but I think we think in similar ways, not the same way, but similar ways with our photography. We look at different things. My landscape photography is nowhere near as well tuned as yours, but I mean, a few years ago when I came off work and I was really struggling kind of physically to move, and I was literally walking the same route every day around our village with a dog as part of my therapy.
Yep.
And I'm literally struggling to be upright. So I literally set it as my challenge to, what can I see on the floor in front of me? What can I take a photograph of? I'm walking slowly. What can I notice that other people aren't noticing? What's going to catch my eye? And it's amazing how every day you can post a different photograph from the same walk, and it's because of that sort of tune in of mind. And I certainly I find your work and your philosophy and your approach to curiosity inspiring, and it has certainly fed my own curiosity and thought on image taking. I mean, the number of times I will stop at, probably most people on Instagram, you kind of, you flick, double tap, flick, double tap, flick, double tap. Oh, I'm going to just read that. Oh yeah, okay, that's it, flick, double tap. Sometimes with your things, I will, you don't always write lots, but sometimes I will spend so much longer on some of your photographs.
Oh, cool.
And I kind of can think of, I can see why I did that. I know what caught his eye there. And I think
taking time to pick it apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
To figure out what's going on in your head.
Right.
Well, I
And-
don't try and figure out what's going on in Andy's head. That's a scary thing to do.
He'll be
No,
dragons.
Yeah. No, I've often said with photography, I don't have any interest in documenting what's in front of me. I'm not a documentarian. I want you to either see, feel, or touch what's in front of me. I want to touch I want to tingle your senses, one of your senses. If I can make you smell a sauteing portobello mushroom, that's a good photograph. Or inside of a daylily, not a daylily. I don't want to put a picture of a pretty flower. That's easy. I want to go inside of it and look at what's in there. I do like repeating the same, trying to photograph the same stuff, because to me, Andy, and I think we're on the same wavelength here. Part of what changes is the conditions, both in light and moisture and even humidity, how it's going to affect how heavy the thing looks. But that makes you more in tune, not with what you're seeing, but the conditions that are influencing what you're seeing, right?
I suppose in essence, it's kind of harking back to being in the Caribbean there. You're making the most out of the situation you've been given, the things that are out of your control. Like the environment or the conditions, the weather, the lighting. You're making the most of that situation at that point. Here's the environment you've been given, and here's your subject matter you're going to take the photo of. What can you do from that? What can you pull from that?
Yeah, it's like being in your shop and you have 3 2x4s. Your tools. Okay, go. What are you going to do? And to me, it's very much the same sort of mental slurry that's got to make work.
We had a great question about half an hour ago from Rasmus. Let's just change it. It's
a great question.
Architectural. Yeah. What architectural moment blew you away the most, and is that how you lost your hair?
I hate that guy.
It's all right. We all do.
Well, probably the one that I've described before in public is the one that I really remember is as a 17-year-old kid crawling out of the Cologne, Germany train station. And if you've ever seen the Cologne Cathedral, it is right across the street from the train station. And I just remember, think about this. If a 600-year-old architectural piece can blow the mind of a 17-and-a-half-year-old kid, you tell me if that's not damn good architecture. Mm. The style is meant to inspire awe in people that don't know what the concept of a deity is. That's what the whole style was manipulated to do.
Absolutely, yeah. It is a building to do exactly that. Right. that thing.
As a very angry 17-year-old kid, it got through to me, and that was the very, very first time, and probably I would have to say the most impactful time piece of architecture that really just it's hard to talk about without goosebumps and all that now. So still works.
I think that's. I've been in many. No, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've been in many cathedrals, and particularly. I mean, yeah, some churches can be amazing too. I mean, at the corner of England that I live in, yeah, there's a lot of pretty old churches, dating back, 11th, 12th century, a lot of sort of 16th, 17th century, and of course then it's kind of 18th, 19th century. And yeah, some of them are very plain, some of them are very simple, but some of them are just so amazing in terms of they take your breath away. Yeah, you walk into. I mean, many of them are open of the day. Yeah, you can walk past and go in and sit down. Yeah, and if you do, and you haven't got the kind of hubbub and the buzz of a Sunday morning service or a service on another day, and yeah, just taking the time to look at the architecture, look at the construction methods that are used. I totally agree with you. I can remember going to a couple of cathedrals on the continent, one in Geneva and one in just a small town in kind of rural mid-north-west France. Yeah, just not any particularly named town that people would know, nothing famous. And you just you go in there and you just literally you can also lie down and just staring at the ceiling, just looking at the amazing work that people put in over many generations, often with some of the big cathedrals. And it is inspiring, and you can get that sense of why people kind of did build them, and in order to kind of sort of maybe either as a devotion to a deity or as a means to share their belief about the deity to others. And it's still kind of it knocks it away. I mean, there's also there's quite a few cathedrals in the UK that got bigger and bigger towers, just because the cathedral that was visible 20 miles away got a bigger tower. So, we've got to build a bigger tower. It's human competition, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
My tower's bigger than your tower. That's the
basically
the age-old bloke dichotomy, isn't it?
Exactly.
Rasmus has said he will take you to
that place,
Nidarosdomen, the great cathedral of Trondheim.
I will. He's going to regret saying that. Ask Jamie. I'm going to take him up on that.
Other Jamie, not me, by the way.
Yeah, Jamie Page.
Yeah, Jamie Page.
There are only two Jamies in the maker community, and we always get mistaken for each other.
I'll have to find out if there's more now. There's got to be more. There's got to be another Jamie, I'm sure. Sure
there is. There's
some Jameses.
Oh, God damn it. Jamie and Rhiannon down in...
Yes. They make the beautiful kitchens. I can't remember the name of their channel. Atelier?
Right.
Yeah.
They
do
all words left in my brain though.
Okay, so we've touched there, and I think it is just a touch, because I suspect we could go much deeper, particularly if there was some alcohol and tacos involved, into kind of curiosity. But creativity feed into the creativity? Curiosity the same as creativity? How closely are they linked in your mind?
I think it's a battery, right? Battery. For me, I'm draining that battery. If I'm seeing and studying and research, I'm filling that battery. So to me, they are operate them. They are the yin of making, I think,
Part of the same thing, but just as necessary as each other, I suppose.
Yeah, because if you're nothing but seeing and creating can be off balance. If most of the time we'll get some sort of a bed and breakfast or Airbnb or something where I can cook because that's an outlet for me, and photography is an outlet. But I have about 2.5 days I have to make something, or I start a little bit kooky. So if I can cook, or thankfully in the last years, that really helps a lot. But yeah, to me, it's a necessity. It's got to happen. Mm. It's not what we do; it's who we are, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that it is a very visceral thing.
And it's just such a cool thing to have. It's just what we call it, but to have people that understand that, to me, was huge. To have people that go, yeah, sure, guy, isn't it? Oh, no, you know what I mean? That's pretty much the blow off I felt I got, I guess, but the maker community has really, said, yeah, we get it. We understand that there is
just as weird.
Yeah. And unapologetically, that's the fun part, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Definitely. In fact, we shout it loud. Yeah.
All right.
It's important to kind of express it out, isn't it? And say, yeah. And I hope, I in some ways, I look at the maker community and I see our portion of it. Yeah, we mentioned this bit in our pre-chat about kind of how we're the bit of the maker community that we're part of that's brought us together. We're on a ripple on a pond, a series of waves, and we're just one part of it. And there's other parts elsewhere. And one of the things that we want to do with this podcast is to try and bring some of those other ripples in and around. But I think the thing that I really, amongst many others, that excites me is that we have younger people coming into the community. Yeah, people in their 20s and teens who are seeing that actually it's okay to be this weird, this type of weird. It's okay to want to make stuff so badly, and it's okay to look at things in different ways. And so it's great to pick up these skills and to try things out. And making is it's for many it's a form of therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time.
Absolutely.
And this is good, and this is something, and I kind of hope that more that some teenagers will see it. Yeah, and you talked about the you're a punk. That kind of I know from previous conversations that you were inspired by that kind of the punk movement, and that kind of feeds into anger. And I kind of, there's a bit of me that kind of hopes that the maker movement, the broader maker movement, the maker movement that's kind of pushed out by us, the people that are hanging out in the chat, the people like Dale Dougherty of Make Magazine, and the people who follow the likes of Adam Savage and some of those other the big names in makers, Jimmy DeResta, Laura Kampf,
Andy Birkey,
whoever it is, Andy Birkey, and it will kind of go, oh, this is a philosophy, this is a way of thinking that is okay. It's good, and in fact, this is better than okay. This is something that I can express, and this is something that I can get excited about. And I think it's.
You mentioned Laura Kampf there, and I remember when they not long after, sort of being part of the community, not just someone who watched people on YouTube, kind of getting involved with people. And there was then this kind of sudden, well, not sudden, but there was an emerging trend of people not just showing their best self in the videos, but then also showing their journey with it. Showing the mistakes, showing the learning experiences, showing where something didn't go as well as they were hoping. And I remember, Laura's video, the first time she sort of said, "Look, this project didn't work. You've reached the end of the video, and it didn't happen." And I think that is a very therapeutic thing as well, to be able to, it's that creative expression again, as we've sort of said about, but that philosophical, exploration of self through that sort of visceral medium of needing to make something, of needing to bring something out of your mind's eye, or out of things that you've seen and inspiration you've drawn from somewhere, and that transferal of skills and experience and knowledge and everything that is you to fruition, to a project that may or may not succeed. It's that kind of that journey of life and progression of self sort of thing. I think you're absolutely right that it's a form of therapy there.
And countering the kind of the Instagram perfect reel,
absolutely,
the showcase, the comparisonitis that people kind of go, I'm not good enough to put these out because I'm comparing my reality to everyone else's show reel.
I'm not smart enough to do geometry. I'll just make really, 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 really fantastically intricate bits for churches.
Yeah.
But that permission to fail. If we can communicate that generationally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. That, and especially the big church pieces and their complexity. I've said it quite a bit. I can hide murders in there, crimes against my craft. I can hide in there because it's a visual assault. And when people first wrap their head around that, they go, "Oh yeah, I guess something 10 meters in the air doesn't need to be the same as a tee box that someone's crafted," and
absolutely, yeah.
That type of tactile project to me, and people that typically make those type of things look at what I do and go, "Oh my God, you're way out there." Well, yes and no, because the skills needed to make a box, let's just say, right and feel like you want your grandmother to hold it. It's got that kind of silkiness to it. That's something that I struggle with because it's not part of my big work. So I think there's just that cool, I said it, the permission to not be perfect. It's huge, absolutely huge, because none of us are, and none of us make perfect stuff.
I think the thing is, the more you master your craft, or the more you learn about yourself, not necessarily mastering a craft, I suppose, but the more you learn about yourself, your abilities, your view of the world and your part in it, the more you're able to hide mistakes or adjust the perspective. Our fabulous mutual friend Caro from Prop Shop Berlin, being able
Perfect
to
example.
produce things that are super small, intricate, beautiful pieces, or massive, huge, ornate sculptures that are encompassing both extremes. Like you say, your big showcase art piece that's on the wall meters away from someone's eye line, or something that's in someone's hand. It's those two extremes of perspective, or a personal perspective of the from the viewer's point, to see your piece, that I said before to Karoline, I'd love to be her when I grow up. Never planning on growing up, but she's a huge inspiration for that ability to kind of command those skills and those those kind of areas of making, regardless of what it is, to be able to know yourself well enough to know where you can fail and how to make good on it.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the craftsmanship thing gets muddy, in my opinion, because I think people tend to equate the word craftsmanship with perfection, and to me, that perspective. It's nothing I want to be involved with. What I want to be involved with is situational perfection.
Yeah.
If I can make an appropriate level of detail for the viewing distance, taking the entire situation focus, and then make something that to be perfect, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But it's then it's far from. But
is it far from perfect or perfect from far?
See that from that distance. There it is.
Do you think that
Jimmy and I had a conversation some time ago about situational perfection? Very fascinating conversation.
Something for us to take note for when we eventually get him on.
Did I miss a question that popped up there?
Well, no. There was a statement popped up. The pop-up was from Ian the Shed. Adam Savage quote: "Failure is always an option." Yeah, it means we've learned something for the next time. I think that is so key.
Failure is always an option.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong with getting things wrong. The problem is if you get something wrong and you don't learn from it. I think there is an issue. But getting something
everything's
wrong,
an opportunity to learn, isn't it?
Yeah, and we should always take that.
Yeah, because I think that the next assumption that is the fastest to evolve survives, right? So probably the strongest skill set you can have is being able to have a plan, have it go wrong, and then being able to almost instantly pivot and go in an entirely different direction without remorse. And without a mourning period for your failure. One thing I learned when I did a back, you let one in, but that's got to be, once you clear the net, it's done. You're on to the next threat, and that's that to me is being able to just. It hurts when you spend money on good material and blow it up, but you can always make tea boxes out of it, right?
there's always a turner somewhere willing to make a pen out of it.
True.
Or as long as you can walk away from something, or at least hobble away and recover. Yeah, I think it's good. It's a learning experience, isn't it? It's when a bandsaw blade snaps on you, or I can still remember once when I was working in a lab and I made the cardinal error of adding some water to some acid to water. I can't get the right way around. I mixed acid and water the wrong way, and if you do it the right way, it dilutes. It's chemistry. Yeah, I'm a physicist. I was mostly measuring surface tension at the time.
As one does.
It was, as one does. I did it the wrong way, and this was a particularly strong acid. It was chromic acid. And the beaker basically got red hot. Luckily, I had a 5-litre beaker alongside, so I was able to kind of correct my mistake before it got stupidly dangerous. And I didn't make that mistake again while I was working in that lab. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I haven't played around with chemistry for a few years now, so I kind of a bit rusty on these things. But yeah, I learned from it. I kind of learned how to cover up. I'm not telling my supervisor, but I'd made that mistake, and I walked away with all my fingers and no serious burns or anything like that. So yeah,
And if it didn't explode, is it really chemistry?
yeah, I have a couple of stories about that place actually. It talks about explosions, but probably for after the show and not in public. Yeah, it's. But I want to go back on something. It's something hit me square in the brain a few moments ago when you were talking about kind of craftsmanship and craftsmanship being perfection. And I kind of the thing that hit me is the expression of craftsmanship as a thing to aspire to, potentially a form of gatekeeping.
Yeah. Here's how I think of it. If you think of a vertical axis and if I'm going to be considered a craftsperson, I want my pyramid of expertise to be, I want it to be very broad. I don't want to have a thin spike unsupported in a specific skill.
Yeah.
That's just me. But I do think a lot of it has to do with being ego driven. I think there are, and maybe we need these type of people that really want to make a specific thing their thing. And that could be spoon carving or anything else. But on one hand, I respect that you can be so hyper focused onto one thing. My brain will not allow that. My brain is this broad perception, and that's where I live and what I prioritize.
So you want to be the tide that raises all ships.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm just so curious about what everybody's good at. I mean, again, where does curiosity work into this whole thing of craftsmanship? I guess I don't want to be. I don't think I would be a good ambassador, a good gatekeeper for a craft as being held up as that's a craftsman. I don't think I'm very good at being held up for that kind of scrutiny.
I think anyone holding you up is going to be, this is a Birkey.
That's true. Yeah, that is far from a craft, though. It's more.
Just be your dictionary entry, just your face, and then trouble underneath.
Yeah. Warning. Flammable. Is that kind of where you're headed, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're just touching on things, aren't we? Here,
we're scratching the surface of topics we'd spend days chatting about.
Yeah, I mean,
true.
I have seen, and I continue to see forms of gatekeeping all over the place, and sometimes you get those people who kind of go, yeah, I'm not going to tell you how I make this amazing piece of work. And then you get those who kind of the trolls who somebody has a go at something and they've taken the courage to put their attempt out on to the world to see, and you get people going, you get the trolls who no doubt don't make things themselves.
The You Should Brigade.
Although you sometimes see it in some of the kind of there's you see it in some of the Facebook groups. You often see somebody put something up, and maybe it's a first attempt at a dovetail, and you'll see maybe 3 or 4 variations on good effort, try and do this next time, and cut away from the mark and move in with a chisel, things like that. And then you'll sometimes get, and it's a good measure actually of how well moderated groups can be. You'll get people going, "Oh, that's rubbish, isn't it?" You just kind of go, "Yeah, they've clearly not. They're not an expert. They've said that. Yeah, this is their first attempt at a dovetail. Of course, it's not going to be brilliant,
Right.
You know, it's not great to see, but I wonder sometimes whether just within our everyday language, almost hitting back on that idea. Yeah, our parents saying, "Yeah, oh, we're not mathematical, we're not musical, we're not sporty." You know, the gate is being kept by other people's experiences, other people's
I mean, I suppose
thoughts. I think it is deliberate. There are people going, "No, I'm not going to share how I make my epoxy river tables. I'm not going to show you how. I'm not going to tell you how I get a really clear finish on that." And then you get the people who maybe gatekeep unconsciously by kind of going, "Oh no, that's really difficult. Oh, or you've got to have the right equipment to do that. You can't. You can't make you can't hand forge a knife using you've got to have a 400-pound in weight mass and $400 anvil, and you've got to have a coal forge, and it's got to be fed by this, and you can't do it in a coffee tin forge that you've made with some plaster of Paris and some sand, and you can't do it on a piece of old railway track that you've ground down flat with a 4-inch grinder, 4.5-inch grinder, rather than a
I mean, it's sort of it's envy, isn't it? It's envy and self-confidence. You know, if you think someone's going to do a better job with fewer materials, or a better job with fewer tools, or with lower quality tools than you've got, it's that sort of human tendency to I tried and failed, therefore you haven't got the start as good as I have, so you won't do as good as I had. It's humans being humans, isn't it? It's our own self-confidence that's often defeats us before we've started. That's back to the martial arts philosophy there, isn't it? If you go into the fight knowing that or thinking you might lose, you've already lost.
Yeah, I mean, and the bravest person in the room is the one that gives it a go, knowing the chances of his of success are low, but he's still going to give it a go. And especially in the community, man, I appreciate those people that are just like, well, I've got a dining room table and a couple of hand saws, and I'm going to try to build something. And it's like, man, go, because that's cool. And I just have so much more fun with that type of mentality than, let's discuss the proper millimetric depth of a dado. I just don't really have any interest in that.
It's the doers rather than the counters.
Yeah, and
but it's also the gatekeeper, the people who go, you've hung your own door, and you've shown a picture of a hung door. It's not a commercial space. It's not something that's governed by fire regulations or building regulations or anything like that. But instead of putting your hinges at 6 inches and 9 inches from the top and bottom, you've put them at 4 and 12. Your door opens perfectly. It's just not the way it's supposed to be done. So
right.
It works. It's my door. Does it matter that I've not put them at the regulation as you see it distance?
A lot of times when I'm working with a client, I will remind them, there's 10,000 decisions that need to be made in this room. I will make sure that you don't make the wrong one. And just know that there are 1,000 degrees of right. Now, we're going to try to get as high up that scale as we can, but I won't allow you to make a wrong one. So now, and you sometimes you can see people physically relax when they realize that, look, yeah, there's an amazing array of right. It's the color spectrum of rightness. There's nothing black and white.
You're allowing them to take the steps forward as they see fit without letting them accidentally take a step backwards.
Right. And that to me is kind of what I hope we're accomplishing in the maker community of, come on board. We'll give you everything we can to help you succeed. You're probably going to fail, or at least to some degree, but that's okay, because that means you're one of us, because we've all done it, right?
Plenty of opportunities to learn on a daily basis.
Yeah, if counted by failures, it would be a much longer list than my successes. That's for sure.
It's the truth.
I want to put another question, and possibly it might end up being our last question from the chat, from our good friend Gerald, the Redsmith.
Oh yeah.
He said you've got a high level of skills and knowledge, and it would be a shame for the world to lose it. And so the question is, how will you? And this might be something you've got in place. It might be something I don't know. Is it something you've thought about? How are you perhaps going to ensure that your knowledge and skills are not lost when that time you come to hang up your chisels and shaper origin for the last time? Is this something you've thought about? Is it? Have you thought of taking on an apprentice? Are you secretly writing a book on Andy Birkey, Sacred Geometry?
Right now, we're writing a book. I hope you guys are transcribing this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, this is going to be kept for all future generations.
I will say this. Again, going back 5 years, I had a point in my life where it was very important to me that I pass on my knowledge to the trade. And then some anger came in, and I said, screw it. I've got nothing but 2 blown out knees, a busted up elbow cap, and 2 screwed up shoulders from the trade. It doesn't get jack from me. Then I came around again, coinciding with my introduction into the maker community. And I realized that hopefully not my specific skills, but my headspace is the most important thing that I can pass on. And I hope doing stuff just like we're doing exactly right now, that will be my legacy, I hope. My specific skills, I need to be better about putting out content that is specifically geared towards answering questions that will expose my skills to everybody. But again, I would say that, especially as it relates to hand skills, there's nothing that's magical about my level, in my opinion, quite honestly. However, the problem solving, because of the weird situations that I've been in, and the breadth of the types of projects, that to me is where I'm different from most people, and that's what I would love to pass on.
I think that's possibly
explaining the tricks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's possibly the most important bit. I mean, cutting a joint, cutting a line, the kind of the basic skills of woodwork, carpentry, joinery. There's thousands of books from every age. There are books from, you can still, if you're in the kind of vintage books, you can find books from the 19th, 20th century, early 20th century with details about some of these things. You've got the books from the Japanese joints making the carpentry. Never mind the what is available on the internet, the YouTube to I want to know how to make this particular type of joint. There's a castle joint with 4 prongs and pieces going in from different directions. How to cut that, how to do that. That is all available. But like you say, the thing that perhaps isn't something that you can get from a book. Although I would argue perhaps to some extent you can. I mean, I've up on the shelf there, one of those books along the shelf behind me is the book that was put out a few years ago with tips from lots of makers. Jimmy's got dozens in there, Laura's got some in there, and you've got tips and tricks. And there's somebody in the chat here has got a few tips on it within that book as well, if I remember rightly. How to apply some pressure. If I remember, one of them is how to apply pressure to a pair of panels jointed together by taking some flexible sticks and ramming one into the ceiling and one down onto the piece involved. Kind of
wow, you actually read that.
I've seen a video demonstrating that actually.
Anyway, I suspect that it's those sorts of things, like you say, those problem solving skills, but also putting those things together. How you produce some of the pieces of geometry that you produce from a point of view of a practical manufacturer, as opposed to here's the mathematical geometry of this. The actual knowing the theory is fine. Doing it in practice for something that is going to be on display 5 meters up is perhaps a different matter.
Yeah, it's kind of goes back to what we were talking before. I think, I learned this badly when I realized that my mom's mental capacity was slipping. And one of my earliest making experiences was cooking with her. And when I finally came to the realization and the acceptance that she was slipping, I sat down with her and said, okay, how do we make your Mennonite potato soup? And and I'm there with a pencil. I'm ready to write down the recipe. And number one, there was never a recipe, but her capacity to describe, when the milk was ready to put, when the roux was ready to put in the milk, and when the milk was ready to put in the potatoes, and to get the balance right, and to taste it on along, and when to add salt, and all the dumplings go in next. And that to me is very similar of how I see my role in the world of if we can, through communication, if we can talk about what it's going to taste like, and then how to reverse engineer out of the taste and the texture of that perfect gravy in a potato soup, in this case, the texture of that, the silkiness of that. And this all gets weird because it's all super like emotional and ethereal and sort of like, there's no clear direction. There's no recipe. Yeah, but just beyond that confusion is this really cool situation where all your senses are involved, and you lose time and all of that stuff that is, to me, is, man, those are the special moments of making, where it's just magical. And if we can get there, that I'll take that as somebody going, yeah, man, Birkey was good at that. Okay. I'll take that as a craft.
There's a follow-up to that question from Red, which I'll put up on the screen now. He said he was just asking because he was wondering whether you would consider taking him on as an apprentice.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'll come over there and start looking for a shop, because we're in.
Yeah, the wine. I suspect the wines. People in California might argue differently, but I suspect the wine's probably nicer over in France. Yeah.
You won't get any argument from me.
We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes already. I think this now takes the record for the longest one already, and
it's any surprise.
Yeah, you knew.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's just, this is.
Let's just say I cleared my calendar.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm more than happy to carry on chatting for longer. And we could. I mean, you're touching on so many things there. Yeah, flow states. The idea that you can get into a flow with something, and the idea of learning rules so that you can break them. Yeah, so you can know what the principles are rather than knowing that. I think for something like photography, that's so important. That idea that you learn to take photographs in kind of the proper way, in kind of virtual air quotes, so that you can take photographs that become your art, that inspire, that are different. We're living in a world where kind of the technology is aiming to bring everything the same. Give us all these filters that make us look amazingly beautiful if we choose on Instagram.
Right.
I mean, in a similar vein, I mean, you two have both learnt a little bit of CAD from me, and that very first lesson doing some fusion was like that like initial set of like, here are the rules that make it work correct every time.
Yeah.
And then we can break those.
Right.
That kind of like you say, that's here's how the world works. Now you can make it work for you.
Yeah, I mean,
totally.
I dig it because it's a headspace. You know what I dig about craft is craft doesn't negotiate. You either do it right or you don't. And you can make excuses for why, and they'll probably work. But craft knows. You know what I mean? And if you get arrogant with a craft, it'll humble you. It'll bring you back down.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of occupations. I'm trying to think, but a lot of our world is a lot of squishy stuff. It's like negotiations and.
It's not black and white. It's not two state. The world is non-binary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a vast spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think at a level that's what I kind of get. I kind of trip on math. Is math just does math, and I just had to sort out a designer not too long ago. He wanted to sort of control the design of this piece, but he was sending me like Pinterest photos of, I want this detail and this one and this one, and if we could move that one upside down, and I'm like, whoa, what you're not comprehending is this, especially Gothic stuff, is it's math, and I can't just magically make an arc, like get pregnant out one side to accommodate this detail that you want. You won't like it because there are very specific rules that have to be followed. Now, we can embellish in between those rules, but in that case, I mean, it's just like, Jamie, your deal is you got to have the specifics right, and then you can jump from there.
A Bezier curve is always a Bezier curve, no matter how you want to make it wobble out to one side. It is what it is.
It doesn't negotiate.
Okay, you talked there about kind of recently working on a design. Let's try and start wrapping this up maybe a little bit.
Right.
Is that been something that's been...
We've already lost a few people.
They're just like, no, we're out.
It's getting late. Yeah, Dan from Silent Workshop has said he's got a 4:30 start UK time. So
that's rough.
That's 5 hours away. I'm sure.
We'll let him off for that one. Then.
Yeah, we'll let him off for going. He's a good guy. He's a good supporter. What's been grabbing your attention lately? Yeah, and by that, just again, we've chatted before, but this is for the benefit of you.
Right. This
haven't.
So, this is the Fisherman's Shield from a video game, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and kind of oddly, I've been in a bit of a funk, and I view those as sort of an expected part of my world, is that there will be waves in it of creativity. And this was something that I did really as something, probably the highest priority for building it was to just build something that I wanted to build for myself, which I don't get to do very often. So that was a really cool thing. And oddly, it has been picking up a bit of attention on Reddit and having some fun with that. But
oh, the surprise! It's gorgeous. Yeah, it really is.
Thanks. It's fun. But this is what I'm into, or starting to get into. American Kingpin. A client just gave me this. This is the story of the guy who started the dark web, and I'm dead curious to get into this. They told me that they absolutely, as soon as they both finished it, they wanted me to read it. So yeah, the story behind the Silk Road.
Yes.
So that's a couple things I've been on about.
There's a good podcast that my good friend here, Jamie, put me onto called the Darknet Diaries.
I would love to take credit, but unfortunately, it was Rasmus who put me onto it.
Wow.
Well, if we have to give Rasmus credit for something.
It's the one good thing he's done, yeah. But Darknet Diaries.
Very good podcast, and that has at least one episode about the Silk.
That is one of those podcasts that will absolutely blow your mind.
Interesting.
And rapidly expand your perception of the world on the internet.
Yes, and the safety of it. Yes.
Or lack thereof.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Rasmus is very pleased. He never thought this day would come. He'd get credit for something.
Positive mention.
The world is ending. This goes nowhere good from here.
We get Birkey on and everything turns on its head.
Jamie, what's been grabbing your attention this week?
Well, I mean, Clifford Stoll, as I mentioned before, he's always in my head. He's someone I think everyone should definitely check out. But again, I suppose for another person in the chat, Steve's to blame for this one, I think. But James Hoffman, sort of the coffee expert from YouTube, been watching a fair bit of his stuff recently, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful human. I could just sit and listen to him for all day, every day. I think just hearing him talk and his subject knowledge and passion for it and things like that is just it's quite lovely.
Nice.
It's nice listening to people who've got a real passion for something, and
and who can explain it in incredibly accessible terms as well. You know, it's a thing about information when buying coffee. You know, the terms that are used might not necessarily be specifically, those tasting notes. You might not taste exactly that thing, but it's supposed to be there to kind of evoke feelings of that. If it says it's zesty and orangey, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to taste of orange, but it's going to give you that feeling of, it's that bright feeling to it. It's understanding those terms, breaking that stuff down, making, removing that gatekeeping aspect of things, just kind of sharing kind of hidden knowledge to bring more people into something, which is a much needed thing in the world, I think.
Help keep the gatekeepers out.
How about you, Andy? What's been grabbing your attention?
Around the house, I had a problem with a door. I had a door handle. I replaced a door handle, internal door, a couple of weeks ago because the internal springs had gone, and I replaced it, and the door wasn't latching properly. And I thought there was an issue with the tubular latch, and so I got to the point. I'd almost ordered a new one, and I hadn't. But I thought I'll have a look, and I found a spare one in the tinkerage, and I kind of took the door half apart, well, not the door, but took the handle off and took the old one out and tried to replace it. I kind of discovered a few little things, like the person who'd installed the door had used. When I swapped the handles over, I'd left the bar in place, the square bar that turns the latch. I'd left that in place, and the new handles, fitted okay with the new handles, but it wasn't the right size bar for the tubular latch. Luckily, I still had the square bar from the new handles, which was the right size for it. So that was one issue. So I sorted that, but it still wasn't catching properly. And looking at it closer, the guy who'd installed it, because we had the doors done when my back was particularly bad, and they'd needed replacing. They'd been around for ages, and it's a case of, look, my wife said, it's not going to happen. We'll get somebody in to do it. And I just found more mistakes that this guy had made, and I kind of like, this is why I like to do things myself. I'm not a brilliant tradesman. I'm not a brilliant craftsman, but at least if I've made a mistake, it's me because I've done it and I haven't paid for it. But when you pay somebody to do something, you kind of expect a better job. So I had to kind of get the chisel out and do a bit of cleaning up. And now the latch, which I was going to replace, doesn't need replacing because it works perfectly fine.
Nice.
Good.
So that kept me busy for a little bit this week. But kind of interweb style, I came across a channel a few days ago called Gratuitous Sets, SETS, for those listening not maybe so carefully. And it's a channel I've not come across before. A very interesting bunch of chaps. Looks like a commercial shop producing props and escape room type things.
Interesting.
I've only delved into a couple of videos so far, but it looks like a really interesting channel. I'm going to do a deeper dive at some point.
A large rabbit hole to fall down.
Yeah, there's some nice pieces. There was a very nice iris. So imagine like an iris for a camera.
Camera lens.
Yeah, kind of about a foot, 18 inches across. And kind of they're talking about that on one of their trailer video. And if they're showing stuff like that, I really want to do a closer look into that. So
Yeah, that's cool.
that's the kind of thing that I've got that waiting. I often keep videos. I use something called OneTab on my desktop behind me to kind of keep a track of things I want to look at rather than keeping 1,000 tabs open and rather than bookmarking everything.
I feel personally attacked there.
But it's
Not me.
I've got that tab. I won't tell you how many. Yeah, one tab keeps my tabs. Yeah, my computer couldn't handle having that number of tabs open. It's in 4 figures. The number of tabs I've got waiting to look at.
Whoa! I feel pretty good about myself right now.
Yeah, it's in 4 figures. It keeps creeping up. Every now and again, I kind of have a blitz and get rid of stuff that's ended up duplicated. And there's so much information. I want it all. I want to know this stuff. I just can't get stuff in quick enough.
Just take a couple of decades, make that time machine.
Yeah.
Get it ready by sort of 1976-ish. You'd be fine.
Oh, if only. Yeah, go back and hand myself the keys to a time machine. Yeah, or the means to record all information, one of those Matrix-style plug in the back of the neck.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would just being able to access that information. I could do with that. So yeah, that's the rabbit hole that I at some point probably next week I'm going to delve into. But it's summer holidays of. For those who don't know, my wife is a teacher. I've got 2 children. My wife and my eldest still have a couple of days of school left. My youngest, who's homeschooled, and I have not. So hopefully, after a couple of days, I want to spend some time clearing my desk, clearing the tinkerage next week, and then hopefully dig on to some projects. And,
Nice.
Maybe even get a couple of videos out this summer.
What the what?
Yeah.
I'm actually starting to feel the mojo again. It's been years, but yeah, I'm might do that myself actually.
That would be good. That would be good. We all like it when we give me a minute, it turns up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole concept is now basically YouTube. Is it not stories? What's the YouTube
Shorts?
Shorts.
On
Yeah,
YouTube. Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because Wes Swain came up with that idea. We were talking, and he said, "It would be an interesting concept is just a 1-minute video. It's terrible for the algorithm, but but they're fun to watch. I mean, they're fun to make, and
just about everything is these days, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? We don't make stuff for the algorithm anyway, so.
Oh, God, no. God, no. What is it even, the algorithm? It's that guy down in the basement of YouTube, isn't it? With the valves and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down in the bottom of the World War II submarine pulling release valves and things.
Who likes watching Jimmy's videos. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I was
right.
going to say, yeah.
At 3 times speed.
Yeah, I was gonna say some of Jimmy's videos at high speed. I watch a lot of videos at 2 times speed because there's so many and I want to watch them all. But sometimes watching Jimmy's at double speed does really, it's a mind blow. Yeah,
No doubt.
You need one of them, Andy.
what do I need?
The
Yes,
viewfind
sure.
thing.
Yes, for
Permanent
the
beef.
audio listeners, Jamie has just installed his third eye.
Yeah, the viewfind onto my glasses. It's a little screen that you can just plug a video feed into, so you can just then beam it straight into your face. So you can just constantly have this feed of YouTube just 2 times speed.
So you're basically a Maker jet fighter pilot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Side note.
Okay. I will tell you this, Andy. If there's one guy on the planet in the Maker community that you would think would have that, who would it be? Jamie Reeder.
It's tech. Yep.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I've got enough glasses. I've got the problem with headphones. So I can't have a pair of glasses on top of my head. That's my problem. Yeah, so I did the third one to do. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I did that the other day. I put my glasses on top of my head, and I already had a pair up there. Like, oh wait, that's where they went.
Right, I think on that note, 2 hours and 2 minutes. I think we should.
Let everyone have a
we'll
break.
say good night to the the live audience, and we'll thank them for coming along and offering some good questions and some really good commentary going in as
Absolutely.
well. Much of which we haven't touched on, but there's some really good comments in there. And for the benefit of those who perhaps are listening on the audio, I would encourage you to go and have a look at the YouTube channel and subscribe, of course. The comments will be left up. I don't edit the video off YouTube. I just leave it up with the comments live as well, so people can dip back into that and actually
Nice.
have a look, because there is some good stuff within the comments, which we often don't get a chance to kind of put into the live chat section.
And even Steve's put some good comments in tonight as well.
Yeah,
No.
that's a very one. Yeah,
Come on,
absolutely.
Afraid so.
It's
what is wrong with this world?
So we get you on and everything goes wrong, backwards, inverted.
you're a positive influence on the maker community, Andy. I think is perhaps the thing we
That's
should
definitely the takeaway.
end with, other than our goodbyes. So, we should do the traditional. Where can people find you, Andy? Because they know where to
Wow.
find us.
Probably Andy_Birkey, Birkey on Instagram is probably my most active spot of the world. And I think just plain Andy Birkey on YouTube too. So, but yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
And links to those are already in the description for those who perhaps. I can't imagine that anyone in the audience doesn't already have you on their subscription list that's listening live. And for those who perhaps are listening on audio who are not yet familiar with your work, please go and look at Instagram particularly.
It's a great way to feel humble.
Yeah.
All the way around Instagram is. Good Lord.
Okay, right. It is time to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from me and
from me.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Schedule the next time because I'm there whenever you want me on. Absolutely.
We will definitely. I don't think there's a guest yet. We wouldn't consider having back on, but we'd certainly love to have you back on at some point. We've got. We've mentioned before. We have quite a lengthy list of people. We've got some good people coming up too as well.
Nice.
We've got the Redsmith coming on soon.
Nice.
Caro. We've got next week is Ali from Geeky Fey Art.
Geeky Fey Art, yeah.
And we've also got then I think the following week we've got Nick Saunders.
Yeah, on
Pendragon.
1st of August.
So that's going to be an interesting chat as well. And it'd be interesting to see. I'm not going to tell people, but it'd be interesting to see whether people can kind of spot links. We are kind of trying to link.
Each
So
sort of guest. Again, we're doing the whole waves and ripples and things. And stuff.
There will
Generally
no doubt be times where
a
it will be a
link
jump.
between each one.
But,
Nice.
Get some thought to that. And we won't say any more than that, really. Maybe we'll just tease bits and bobs as to what it is, but we'll let people work that out.
Spot the link. It can be a competition or something.
Yeah.
Get
Right.
a sticker out of it or something.
There we go. Yes, well, hopefully at some point we will have stickers, so we'll get that sorted. So I'm gonna hit the end broadcast now, and
Good night, guys.
we can